Hey everyone, welcome back to Garage Stories. So today I wanted to do something a little bit different. I wanted to actually tell the story of how I came to be parting out lawnmowers and working on lawnmowers and all that kind of stuff. And it really goes back a long ways because I've been doing this a really long time, the majority of my life. And before that, it goes back to my dad. My dad used to work on lawnmowers and that kind of stuff. He worked more on push mowers, but then when he bought the acreage out in the country, he worked on the riding mower as necessary. And then as I grew up, I liked to be out there helping him. I liked to ride on the lawnmower, sit on his lap, and that kind of stuff. So I was always around the mowers when he was working on them. And then I'm trying to think, probably the earliest modification I ever made to a mower was maybe when I was around 10 years old. I added a governor bypass so that I could speed up the mower, make it go faster. Coincidentally, that same mower tore the magneto off underneath the flywheel. I think it's called a magneto, the coils, whatever. That may or may not have been related. But anyway, that was fun to realize, hey, I can just wire this onto the governor, pull this wire, and the mower will go faster. The engine will run faster. From that point on, that mower obviously was broken, so that was one of the earlier projects, trying to figure out how to fix this mower. I never really got that mower fixed up again. We also had an old dirt bike that my dad had received years before I was ever born, and that dirt bike sat out in a shed for years. And I remember I would go out there and sit on it with a can of wasp spray because there was lots of wasps out in the shed. I would sit on that dirt bike and I would just imagine I was riding it down the freeway. It was a dual purpose bike, so it was street legal in theory. And that was going to be a project when I got a little older. My dad and we would work on that and get that running. And the day came, we pulled it out, and it needed more work than we realized. Things didn't go smoothly. It kind of sat for a long time. I would go out and pedal on it, my dad would work on it. And then eventually the breakthrough day came, and this could have been a couple of years later because I didn't know much about what I was doing. We didn't put a whole lot of time into it. We finally got that thing running. So that dirt bike was a 1973 Honda XL 175. I have a soft spot in my heart there for that bike. So that was one of the first major breakthroughs, was getting that motorcycle running. That was so cool. After that, you know, we mowed the property where our church building was. So we had some old mowers around that we would need work occasionally, you know, like a carburetor would get dirty, stuff like that. Then we bought an old walk-behind mower that had a trashed engine, and I tried to get that thing running. It was like a Bunton Goodall it was a pistol grip with the 2 clutches, walk-behind mower. It was like a 48-inch cut, which was wider than any of our mowers at the time. They were all like 42, 46. That thing was a bear to try to get running. It had the carburetor was like just rusted up. I ended up snapping the shaft that your I don't know, you call your venturi is on in the carburetor. So we never got that mower running well. I did get it to run a little bit, and this was kind of cool. So it had a pull start on there that was broken. I would show you this more, but this one has been scrapped, so I can't really show it to you. It was a pull start, 14 horse Kawasaki, I believe, and there's just like a cup on top of the flywheel. So I would try to start it, you know, you wrap the cord around there and pull it. But for someone who doesn't want to start, well, that's a lot of work to rewrap that cord every time. So I had this ingenious idea that, hey, take a riding mower that we already have, you know, that's running, and take off the deck blade belt and belt it to this mower I'm trying to get running onto its deck belt. Because don't need to run the decks, we're just trying to get the engine started. So what I would do is I would put that belt on there, I'd have the other mower running, and then I would physically push them apart to tension the belt, and that would spin over that Kawasaki engine until it started running. So that was pretty cool. You know, think outside the box, just trying to figure out a way to make life a little easier to get this thing running. Like I said, it never really amounted to much. I did wear out a spot on the tire on that lawnmower though because of that belt running by it. So that was another one of those early projects. Then I bought a Honda 300EX four-wheeler that needed the engine, I would say, rebuilt. It had a bad piston. The piston broke and it needed basically a quick top end job, which took me a long time because I didn't know what I was doing. But I took apart the top end on that 300EX, got it running better. I've since sold that machine. It had lots of other little issues. I think I paid $300 for it and sold it for like $600 years later. And then my most major mower project when I was younger was replacing the engine in a Grasshopper 718. And that took me a little while because the engine was popping out oil seals everywhere. And I would replace them and then it would pop them out and be leaking oil. I'm like, gosh, what's going on? Until we finally realized it was building up too much internal pressure. So we started taking it apart and realized that everything was worn on there. The crankshaft was worn, the Cylinders were worn, everything was worn, even though it would run, everything was worn out. And the cost to like get everything machined and put back together would have been like $400 or $500. I don't remember exactly. And at the time, I was able to get like a brand new engine for like $800, and it was like, you know, if we get a brand new engine, it's going to work. If we do all this work on this old engine, we still don't know what the result's going to be for sure. So we went the route, got the new engine, and I used that mower for a while. That's part of my relationship with grasshoppers. I really liked that mower. I also really like my dad's Grasshopper 223, which we just changed out the deck drive belt recently. So my dad was a major influence in helping me learn on these things and basically supporting. My parents supported me working on mowers and stuff like that. So they let me collect old mowers in their yard. Over time, you know, that was just kind of on the back burner. Then later on, I saw a mower for sale on Craigslist that was a Husqvarna, I think it's like a YTH 2046K, which was the same mower that my dad had had for a long time, which did great. That mower served us really well. In fact, it's almost identical to this one, only it had a 20 horse Kohler. I'll show that one to you out in the parts yard here in a little bit. But that mower just kind of gotten old and we stopped using it. But I saw this one on Craigslist that needed a transmission. I was like, hey, that's really cheap. It's like 125 bucks or whatever. I could just swap the transmission out. Like, should I do that? And then I just got my wheels turning about actually replacing major components like that, swapping them out, getting them from another used mower. I got the wheels turning. And I didn't buy that mower, but I think a few weeks later, I bought a Cub Cadet 2146. Anyway, it was a shaft drive 16 horse Kohler Cub Cadet that did not have the deck on it. I paid $120 for it, and that was the first mower that I parted out. I think we sold the engine for around $300 online, because that was how I first started selling parts, was like through eBay. That was super exciting. It started me down that whole road of, okay, now I can buy a mower, I can take it apart, I can sell it. But I will warn you, it's a lot of work to picture and list stuff on eBay. You can get good at it. Bulky items like that, you know, how are you going to store them? What condition are they going to be in when you sell them? How do you package them up and ship them? There's just a lot involved there. But we definitely made a fair amount of money doing that. I mean, a little bit. We didn't do it full time. This was just, again, it was still a side thing. And to this day, this is all still a side hustle. This is stuff I do for fun. I do this around my regular full-time job and around spending time with the family. So this is not my source of income. I don't make that much money doing all this stuff, but we do make a little bit, enough to help out and do different things and travel and go on trips and stuff like that. And I enjoy doing it. So that Cub Cadet, that was the first one I had parted out. Then after that point, I did actually end up parting out that mower that my dad had, along with a lot of other mowers that year. This was it was 2018. So I started doing that. And my first workshop was out in the open. I didn't have this shop here. I know this shop's not that glamorous, but I worked out in the open. Growing up, my dad did not really have a shop. At one point we got a wooden shed that I rebuilt the engine and my four-wheeler in, and I did replace the engine on the Grasshopper. But for the most part, all the work was done outside. So you guys can definitely do this stuff outside. I mean, that's where we worked on our cars growing up. We worked outside. We got a piece of cardboard, put it under the vehicle, put it up on ramps, you know, whatever. As long as it's not raining, you know, you're good. It may be hot, it could be cold, but, you know, you just work with what you have. I'm very glad to have this shop now to keep me a little bit dry. Although there are some holes in the roof and issues, it's a lot better than working outside. Don't let those things hold you back. You don't have to have the perfect place. You don't have to have the perfect tools. You can get tools from Harbor Freight to get you started out, you know. Nicer tools will be nicer in general for a while, but I don't even have super expensive tools. Mine are like Craftsman, back when Craftsman was a part of Sears. 2018, we started selling parts like through eBay and stuff like that. So in 2020, COVID hit and all that stuff. We jumped into doing Facebook Marketplace for selling mower parts and things like that, and trying to pick up mowers that people were getting rid of. And we picked up a lot of mowers that year. Not to the scale of the following years. I probably picked up maybe 15 mowers that year. Then 2021, we picked up probably 50 mowers. It was a lot of mowers in 2021. 2022, last year, we maybe got 10 mowers. I'm just guessing. This year, I haven't gotten any yet, which is good. I'm trying to scale back and process out all the parts I have. So in a nutshell, that's how I got started parting out mowers. One other thing I should mention beyond lawnmowers and four-wheelers and stuff is cars. So I did have a car that I spent a lot of time on learning how to work on cars. It was a 1994 Ford Escort that had been in a front end collision, and basically it was my car if I could get it up and running. So I spent a lot of time on that, learned a lot of things. We had a complete parts car, which was very helpful. So replacing, the hood, fender, grill, radiator, headlight, power steering pump, alternator, all those kinds of things. Got it up and running, and that was my vehicle for a while. Yeah, that's how I learned on cars. Learned with a junk trash car and a complete parts car. It's a great way. Let's go take a walk around and we'll show you kind of different things that I worked on and where I worked on stuff and things like that. Come on. This is what's left of the original Cub Cadet. We sold the engine, we sold the transmission, and we sold some other miscellaneous parts, like a gas tank, I think. We did sell the hood off this as well. Made a few $100s off of that one. This one here, this one is my dad's. This is the one that got me thinking about parting stuff out. Those 20 horse Kohler engines are worth a lot. At least they were, because they tend to break. We mowed a lot of pasture with that mower. That was a really good mower. As you can see, we have a lot of mowers now. We have probably in the neighborhood of 80 mowers maybe. It just depends on if you count all the parted out ones. I don't normally count those ones. And see, I can go through and tell you on a fair number of these when and where we got it. We got this one early on in 2020 during COVID. That was one of the first ones, and it ran. It's like, wow, someone's getting rid of a mower that actually runs for free. So one thing I would recommend is pace yourself. Don't do what I did and pick up a ton of mowers unless that's a part of your master plan. It kind of was a part of my plan, but I also think I outdid myself a little bit and got too much too quickly. Tent sheds can be very useful if you don't have a lot of indoor space. I did use a tent shed back in probably around 2020, maybe, yeah. And that did help me some. That was my shop for a while, was one of these. Not this one, a predecessor. That's definitely something to look into because they're like, a couple hundred from Harbor Freight, but they also aren't very durable. And I have a video coming out on those sometime soon, hopefully. One tip is use billboard canvases to keep the grass down under your mowers. That's worked pretty well for me. I end up with enough mowers that don't all fit, but as you can tell, there's billboard canvases down here. When I was storing up mowers at my parents' house, I didn't have those, and grass grew up through everything. This is the shop as it sits now. It's pretty full. Got the X320, this Husqvarna riding mower, Husqvarna Zero Turn, Banshee, and another old mower sitting over there. And outside, got this mower. You just pop that engine out to sell it to someone, and then they backed out. That does happen, and it's a little bit annoying, but there's not much you can do about it, so you just have to keep moving on. And I'm trying to not sell any parts for less than $75, just to make sure it's worth my time. And here we have another one. We just pulled that engine out. I think that was the video from last week. And here is the biggest purchase I've ever made, really, for the business. This was $3,800, and this has served me so well. That's more than I've ever even spent for a car. All right, so this is the yard where it all started. This was my shop. Right out here in this flat area here, what we call the football field out here. Here's the shed that I rebuilt the engine on the 300EX in. Oh, there's the gas tank for the Honda XL175, which is sitting right there. That is the motorcycle. What do you guys think? You think we should get that thing up and running again? I kind of want to. It's obviously pretty shot, but the chassis is there, and I'd like to do a engine swap to a Lifan 200. It ended up locking up, the engine did, and that kind of was its demise. All right, guys, thanks for following along on this story time today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something and maybe, answered some questions you may have had. But yeah, I definitely enjoyed parting out mowers and stuff like that. I do want to get more into four-wheelers and things like that. Mowers are mowers. The beauty of flipping mowers is you don't have to have titles and stuff like that. But I would like to start doing other stuff as well as mowers, and maybe not doing quite as many mowers. And right now I'm just trying to clean stuff out, get some capital, more cash on hand so we can do other stuff. But anyway, guys, I hope you found this informative. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something new. Hit that like button. Feel free to subscribe if you haven't already. And leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think, how you started working on stuff, or other questions you'd like to ask me. I think we're over 2,000 subscribers now, so the channel's starting to grow and get going a little bit better. We're looking at having some merchandise out for sale soon. And anyway, guys, until the next time, stay safe and keep making stories. Thanks for watching.